So you wanna be a criminal, do ya? Game on!
Crime Boss Rockay City was one of the bigger surprises to come out of the Game Awards last year. A brand new video game property from a relatively unknown studio featuring a star-studded cast of relatively well-known actors with a hard release date just a few months away, no less. The slick, colorful reveal trailer definitely turned some heads, but it also raised a few eyebrows because it focused more on who is in the game rather than what you actually do in it. After an hour and a half of hands-on time with Crime Boss, I now have a much clearer idea of what it actually is, but I also came away even more skeptical that it can actually achieve Each character also has a loadout consisting of 2 weapons and a special item. There's something extremely funny to me about a cold-blooded hitman rolling up to a job in his black sharkskin suit, strapped with a Steyr AUG and a gold-plated Desert Eagle, but also 8, count 'em, 8, small rocks which he can throw as distractions. Did he bring the rocks from home, or did he pick them up in the parking lot? Anyway, other characters seem woefully underprepared, only packing a sidearm and a melee weapon. Would you rather bring a knife to a gunfight, or maybe a bat? Up to you. After all that emphasis on this being a game about stealth and strategy and not going in guns blazing, the first mission that we played had us shooting up a rival gang's party to send a message to its ringleader, played by Vanilla Ice. It's possible this mission could have been handled stealthily with lethal precision, but that wasn't really the case of our squad of 3 first-time players and a PR guy who'd probably played this mission 20 times that very day. It devolved into a hectic firefight in a matter of seconds. I'm not sure if the guns I picked were underpowered or if the enemies were just bullet sponges, but it felt like I had to unload almost an entire clip into a low-level goon to put him down. We eventually went up against a higher-ranking member of the gang who had the beefy health bar of a boss but behaved just like a regular enemy, so it was a little bit comical and kind of mean to see 4 of us pumping bullets into him while he crouched in a corner behind a desk. A few missions later, I picked a shotgun loadout, which was able to one-shot most enemies, including some of the more heavily armored ones, so I'm inclined to think that maybe there are some balancing issues. That, or Vanilla Ice's henchmen, are high on that PCP. Unsurprisingly, Crime Boss has some Grand Theft Auto DNA, including a star-based wanted level. Doing enough crime stuff will attract the attention of the Rockay City police force, and since doing crime is the main objective, they make regular appearances. After killing the rival gang's senior bullet sponge, the cops arrived and our final objective was to make it to the getaway van. A couple of us got down while fumbling to get into the van, but it was still considered a successful mission, so we moved on to the next one, even though 2 of us were dead. And this was kind of the running theme of my time playing. Comical ineptitude from a squad of first-time players, somehow resulting in a win state, and then repeat. If insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, I'm not sure what you call failing at something once, classifying it as a success, and moving on having learned nothing from your mistakes. We restarted 2 missions because the game crashed, and replayed the last one because we actually failed it completely, by which I mean I grossly underestimated the volatility and blast radius of a gas can before shooting it and killing my entire squad. But the point is, for a game that supposedly has multiple approaches to each mission, I only really got to see each of them once. Other missions had more varied objectives and seemed to have a wider margin of opportunity to take different approaches. Several of them had us entering restricted areas to steal drugs, and in some cases the optional objective was to remain undetected the whole time, so it's possible to do some careful recon, take out some enemies silently, and then get out with minimal fuss, but it takes more practice than I was able to get during this hour-and-a-half long preview event. It also doesn't help that all enemies are immediately on high alert the second that one of them spots you. A few missions are actually designed to go sideways. On the character select screen, one mission had the suspiciously simple objective of completing a drug deal, but the drug deal of course goes bad no matter what the players do, and the mission is basically run and gun from the start. In several missions, the getaway van blows up the second you reach it, and you're instructed to find another exfiltration point while being shot at by police helicopters and rival gang members. What's funny is that the same van gets reused, and seeing your van in one piece after it blew up in your face is a huge relief, but then it gets blown up again, which is just heartbreaking. That van was days away from retirement. Based on the marketing alone, there's an argument to be made that the gameplay of Crime Boss Rockay City isn't exactly its main selling point so much as its cast is. Michael Madsen, Michael Rooker, Danny Glover, Danny Trejo, Kim Basinger, Chuck Norris, and Rob Vanilla Ice Van Winkle might not be A-listers these days, but they're definitely household names. Crime Boss by no means takes itself too seriously, and it's clearly an homage to over-the-top action movies of the 80s and 90s. However, in Urban Legends, the cutscenes are so detached from the gameplay that it feels less like renting one action movie from Blockbuster and more like flipping between two movies that are airing simultaneously on different cable networks sometime in the mid-90s. Sadly, the way the celebrity cast feels most closely connected to the game is they also sound like their main objective is to make as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time and get the f*** out of there.
Let's end it here today.
This is some of the worst voice acting I've heard in a game in recent memory. Chuck Norris literally sounds like he's reading his lines out loud for the first time, not particularly sure of or remotely interested in his motivation. After losing, Norris will kneel over your corpse and ponder,
"Why did I beat you this time?"
with the same energy as David Lynch reading a weather report.
61 degrees Fahrenheit, around 16 Celsius.
Basinger, Glover, and Rooker's characters have a similar air of bewilderment, but are at least trying. Rooker's character regularly bursts into maniacal laughter mid-statement, which just makes it sound like he really just read these lines for the first time, but is also genuinely cracking up at the idea of calling somebody a butthole gerbil. Vanilla Ice's character speaks in rhyme, but with the cadence of somebody talking normally, kind of like Roadblock for the original G.I. Joe cartoon.
Duke and Snake Eyes, just you wait. We're gonna chop Cobra up for bait.
The notable exception is Damien Poitier, who plays Michael Madsen's character's right-hand man, and who will be the voice in your ear for much of Crime Boss. His biggest claims to fame as an actor are playing Thanos in the post-credit scene for the first Avengers movie and Chains in Payday 2, but apparently he also had some hand in writing Crime Boss. The jury's still out on how the main campaign actually plays out, but if he had any hand in making Michael Rooker say the words butthole gerbil, we are all deeply in his debt.
Alright, enough grab ass.
After reflecting on everything I just said, I realize how much campy B-movie charm Crime Boss Rockay City has, and how much potential it has to be a very stupid good time, and I really want to love it. Unfortunately, the wacky over-the-top presentation seems completely at odds with its gameplay systems, which appear to be playing it a bit more straight and potentially biting off more than they can chew. Ultimately, the imperfections that make a bad action movie a cult classic aren't always as charming when you have to be a part of that action. Obviously, take all this with a grain of salt, as it's based on a vertical slice of one mode of a pre-release build of a budget-priced game, but also bear in mind that that game is out in a month. Anyway, for everything in the world of video games, Vanilla Ice, and butthole gerbils, keep it right here on IGN. I'll see you around.